It's your boy A-Rye, and today we're going to talk about variables. Also, we're going to go back and do some side missions, I'm thinking, because I've got one on Promethea, that one's back on Pandora, that one's Pandora, that one's Pandora. So it looks like we're going to Pandora. And also, like I mentioned before, you can fast travel, push triangle to get back into the world map, to the different worlds, and we will go to Pandora. And yeah, let's go to the droughts, because whatever mission I left selected says to go here. So, whatever, we'll go here. Can't hurt. Anyways, so variables. Well, variables are one of the most important things about programming, and it's probably like the second thing that you'll learn when you learn to actually write computer code. First thing, of course, being printing output to the console, like I mentioned in previous videos with the Hello World concept and the Hello World programs. And on my tutorial site, I'll make sure to include a Hello World program for every language that I plan on covering on that site. And the next thing that I'll cover is variables for every language on that website. So let's talk about them now. So variables are useful because they store information that you need to use or manipulate for your program. So for whatever function or purpose you're trying to write computer code to accomplish, most likely you're going to need variables. Now, you'll especially notice this if you do any of the challenges on Code Wars. You pretty much need a variable for any of the challenges on there. So anyways, it does differ from language to language. Python's going to be the first language that I cover in this series and on the website. And then I'll go into Java, and then C++, and then whatever languages I can after that. Really not too sure. I kind of think that this project's going to be an ongoing thing pretty much for my entire technical career. Alright, so let's see. Undertaker, I know where that one is. Let's just go ahead and do that one. Alright, and respawn vehicle. Okay, so variables, they are useful, to, like I said, to store information, to use and manipulate, and to be changed throughout your program. So with Python, you really don't need any signifier words to label your variables when you create them. You can literally just type some variable name, and then the equal sign, and then whatever value you want that variable to equal. Now this is really useful as the Python interpreter will actually determine what the best fit is for your variable. Well, real quick, let's talk variable types. So there's the int, there's a string, there's a char, there's a float, there's a double, there's a long. I'm trying to remember if there's any other ones that I'm forgetting. I'm sure there are. But yeah, the most basic ones, int stands for integer. It's just a number, and it's a simple number. Without a decimal point. Now, a float is a number that includes a decimal point. So if you have a number that needs a decimal portion, you need to have a float. And that can lead to a lot of problems and a lot of bugs when you're using languages like Java and C++, as I know from experience, converting from int to float and vice versa. However, Python makes it really easy. It will just change the variable or make the variable whatever you need based on the data that you try to store into it.
There's that thieving Undy Goblin! Get him! That's me, huh?
Ooh, super round. Okay, so, yep, variables in Python. Let's say we want to do a simple adding function, and that function is passed two numbers that you're going to add together. Now, you're going to want to store the numbers as variables. Yep, a wonderful Borderlands dialogue. Okay, so, and also, you don't have to, I guess. I mean, that might not be the best example for the first one, but let's just say, for all intents and purposes, you're storing the variables that you're going to add together. So, I would name it like num1 and num2, or something like that. Maybe variable 1, variable 2. But, I mean, you really want to make the variable names as descriptive as possible and as short as possible, because you're going to be probably typing them a lot more throughout your program.
The Undertaker's foul reign of Under-Terror is over! Not gonna be stealing any more of my trademark red bars, that's for damn sure. Pandora is a safer place now, thanks to you, Wall Hunter!
Okay, so we got the underwear back. Hooray! So yes, num1, num2. That's, ooh, that's pretty good. Oh, come on. Alright, we'll take it and we'll look at it later. So num1 and num2, I would declare both of those variables and then I would assign them whatever's passed into the function. Or you could also, I mean, if this is a standalone thing, you could just set num1 to 5 and num2 to, let's say, 10. And then you would say return num1 plus num2, and voila, you have a simple addition function. Now, this might not seem very practical at first, but like the general idea of it, or the general gist, is really useful, as you can use the same concept on more complex functions. So, like you might want to make a multiplication function, a subtraction function, an add function, or even an all-out calculator. In fact, that's one of the things, if you went and checked out that free code camp link on my last video, that's actually one of the projects, is you make a calculator in JavaScript. So, things come in handy, for sure. Now, as far as variables go, like I said, Python variables are very simple. Alright, let's see, we finished that. Can't do that. We could do head case. Let's do golden calves first. And actually, let's see. We might have to, travel, because I believe that's a map transition to Ascension Bluff. So we could actually just go to Pandora, Ascension Bluff, and just travel there. Alright, and we'll go do golden calves. Okay, so yes, variables are very important, and they have multiple types, and also in languages that are considered object-oriented, variables get a little interesting and more complex. So an object in programming is a variable, but it also has attributes that can be separate variables. Let's take, say you're writing a program to keep track of students. Now, you would make a student object, and that student object, by default, would have things like a string variable for, and actually real quick, let me cover what a string is, because you might be a little confused by that. So in computer science, a string refers to a string of characters, and a char variable is a single character. Char is short for character. And string is a null-terminated array of characters. Okay, now that might have sounded really complicated, but basically it's a word or a sentence saved to one variable, and it's very useful. So let's see. So you have a string, and so you'd have a string first name, string last name for your student object, or maybe you just have a string for name and it would have their first and last name. So you could definitely do that. Let's see, how good is this actually? Now, see, now that I'm back in the beginning area, the weapons aren't going to be all that great. So let's not worry about the loot we get here. It's just to make money. So anyways, back to objects. So you have a student object. You'll probably have a string variable contained within that student object for their name. And actually, I kind of want... yeah, I want this type of vehicle. And you might also have like a social security number, because I know that a lot of times back when I was in grade school, they would post our grades and just use our social security number instead of our name. So we kind of remain anonymous. Although hopefully that isn't the same thing or practice that people are doing nowadays, because social security numbers are pretty sensitive information, something you don't want getting out. But anyways, you might have a social security variable in there depending on how secure your organization is. I mean, if you're an actual school and you have a good IT department with a good cybersecurity team, then yeah, you might actually have the social security for each student in that object.
Come on, boy.
Let's see, you might also have like an age variable, a GPA variable for their grade average, and just anything that you can think of that you would need when using a program that deals with student information.
Feel the bloodlust.
Now you could also have something like, like college or a university. They definitely have student objects in their program. Oh, here's the first one poster.
I remember that picture being taken. Man, we've come a long way since bandit selfies. You know, back when I started my first bandit clan, if you want an image of yourself, you gotta muddy up your face real good and then smash it on a rock.
Okay, and also I will make sure to add a little bit of a description of all these different variable types in the description of this video, just in case, you don't want to have to go back and watch it through to hear a certain part. Oh, there's a Typhon de Leon thing. Let's go listen to that. But yeah, like I said, objects are complex variables, and not all languages can use
My
objects.
parents' tad farm wasn't far from here. One time Skags ate some of our tools, but I hunted those bastards down and licked them good. And and only now it occurs to me that that expression might not sound so great. Ah, who cares? I am who I am, and I'm telling you, I licked those skags real good.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, and that's actually what a lot of employers want, is for you to know object-oriented programming. I mean, and honestly, most universities, that's exclusively what they teach, is object-oriented programming. But I digress. So, objects. Now let's use another example of an object. Let's do an animal object. I don't know, let's say a skag. It's related to Borderlands. So, you have a skag object. Now in there, you might have something like damage that is dealt when the skag attacks. That would be an int, or it could be a float if you really want to get down to semantics. And then let's see, it could also be, you would have a type, like a barfing skag, or a pup skag, or an electric skag. I honestly don't remember off the top of my head the names of the different ones, but you would want to have something like that. Oh yeah, I think we're going in here. Just to tell the different types of skags apart. And I most assuredly guarantee that this game has objects like fanatic objects. Let's see, what other enemies do we have? They might all be named fanatics. You can tell what they are when you look at them. When you get close, psycho. So there would be like a psycho object or an enemy object that would have a type or a class of psycho, and just stuff like that. Now, animal object is useful for describing another computer science concept that might be a little more advanced, and I'll go more in depth later. Definitely on my website, I'll provide a few examples of this, but what they call inheritance. Now, say you have a... let's just go back to like a general example of an animal object. Say, well, literally just an animal object. It could be a subclass of mammal, bird, reptile, you know, and you can break it down to the actual way that we scientifically classify animals in the rest of the world. Where is that poster? Okay, so you would have an animal object, and then if you wanted to say make a monkey object, you would make a monkey object and have it inherit mammal, which would inherit animal.
Now that is a quality wanted poster. It really shows off the old blood hand. I started wearing that during Blood Feud number 2. No, it was 3. That's right. Because number 2 was the time I declared war against a mountain. Guess which one's still standing, bro? Death to mountains!
Okay, I'm slowly remembering where all I gotta go. I hope I gotta go all the way over here, this bridge, then that bridge, just to get the third poster. But anyways, yeah, so inheritance is really useful because basically when you're creating an object, you can designate attributes that you want inherited. Like an animal might just have like age, region, location, name, you know, certain very vague variables. And then once you get into the mammal or bird or reptile tier of object classification, then you could have specific methods or functions, sections of code that do a function or do a purpose that pertain to that specific class. Okay, so this might be getting a bit ahead, but still, yeah, inheritance is really important. And so, an example that we used in, real quick, let's see what Doll said. Oh, no, we gotta go to this menu, social, skip over all my friend list. Wait, what? Okay, sorry, I went one too far. Doll, that's actually pretty good. Let's get it. Okay. Oh. That's probably one from my other characters. Anyways, back to the discussion. So, yes, inheritance. An example that we used at Colorado State University was an animal object that inherited from, or well, that was the parent class. So the one that other classes would inherit from. And we would have mammal, fish, reptile, and bird. And we had to design or develop.
I don't remember anyone snagging that picture, but I can't blame them. Those are my trusty Hyperion Red Bar X2000s with Quicksilver Fly and no rise banding. Oh, best underwear in the universe, bro. It's the only good thing Hyperion ever gave me.
Should actually, honestly,
Delightful.
Just between you and me, they're the source of all my power.
gotta love
Hey,
Borderlands.
we got some great images of my righteous bandit bod. Now, the COV have a 3D printer nearby that's producing those statues. Scan the wanted posters into the printer so we can print statues of me instead.
And that's what I was gonna say. Is I know that we have to go to a 3D printer located nearby this area to do the next part of the mission, print out the statues. Okay, so anyways, back to the example of animals and inheriting the animal class. Like, so we would have a bird object, and when we were coding the bird object, we would have a warm-up method.
They are anyway, gods. You know, someone called my pecs divine once. That's pretty much the same thing.
Okay, so the warm-up method was actually declared in the animal class, as we would be coding it differently based on which animal was inheriting the animal class. So, for example, like a fish warms up by swimming up. So if you made a fish object and you started programming the warm-up method within the fish object, it already included the warm-up method from the animal class. But we had to specify what the fish actually did to warm up, which is swim upwards. So, and again, this is a really simple example. We probably never use this in the industry, but the concept is the same. So you would use this for other things. And we'll actually get into an example very soon about an actual real-world application of that. So anyways, the fish would swim up. Now, reptile would seek the sunlight or sit on a warm rock for its warm-up method, but it would still have a warm-up method because it inherited from the animal class. It just came pre-included from that. So you could, well, and we're going to have to get into a whole section on how to write methods, functions, the difference between the two, and all that. And like I said, inheritance is kind of a more advanced concept, but still, it's all important. You need to know all of this. So, and in hindsight, it's really not that complicated. So, jeez, that is a big scad. Oh, and that thing's dead. Okay, anyways, so then the other thing's the mammal. A mammal would shiver. So you would make a mammal object and have it inherit the animal class, and so it would inherit a warm-up method. Well, that warm-up method is empty, like all of them, when it's first initiated. And so you would have to fill out the code in it and say, shiver. And there you go. Then you filled out that method for that object type. Okay, so now let's do a more practical example. Let's see. So we were talking about students. Let's talk about employees, because that is definitely practical. If you're going to be programming a piece of software for a company to keep track of employees, then you will definitely...
Now feed those wanted posters into the scanner. Wow, I'm really walking you through this, aren't I?
Yeah, walk through. Okay, anyways, so say you're writing a piece of software to keep track of employees. Now, you would first probably declare or program a class file for employee. Now, it's intentionally vague because then you could have all of the subclasses of employee inherit from that object. So, all employees probably...
How'd they turn out?
All employees probably have like an employee number, a name.
You are a prime physical specimen.
Oh, come on. I know. Now, let's swap out some of those crabby old COV statues for some of my perfection, as you so rightly put it.
Okay, so, and honestly, I haven't really noticed a difference in the loot by placing these anywhere special, so we're just going to place them... Oh, you got to destroy the original. And place Vaughn's.
Glorious golden Vaughn! Oh, man! Look at me now. Got my own statue. Just joined up with the #1 clan on the planet. Go Crimson Raiders! I love this day!
And I love this game. It's so fun.
And that's me! You know what makes the Crimson Raiders so great? Y'all kick ass like crazy and protect the weak. Now that is the kind of clan I can get behind.
Okay, that is the closest one. Alright, cool. So, other things that you would have, let's say you had custodial. Now, custodial might seem a little low on the totem pole, and it is, but a custodian would have...
They're gonna be pissed! You know, someday, maybe I'll give the whole bandit war chief thing another go, but for now, I'm really good rolling with you and smashing the COV into dust. Anyway, thanks for your help, and come see me when you have a chance.
Okay, so the reason I bring up custodial is they usually need to have general facility access, so that's just something to keep in mind. Another thing you could do is maybe have like an engineer type employee. So that would be a whole separate object to classify someone as an engineer, but it would still inherit the employee class, because you still need an employee number and a name, and you might, as you program, figure out other things that all employees have, like say start date is another one. Citizenship, I know that's important to keep track of in some companies. And I'm trying to think of what else was in employee records, just places I've worked. Anyways, for now that should be good. So a different type of employee might be like an executive or, you know, a higher level employee. And for one of those, you might actually have a new field named parking spot. Like say, you know, your average run-of-the-mill low-level employee doesn't have a parking spot, so there's no need to allocate resources for a parking spot variable within that object. So what you would do is you would have an executive variable, or whatever you want to label it, and that object, well yeah, variable object, same thing in this situation, that would inherit the employee class. Okay, so you can see it can get really complicated really quick. However, it is really useful because by doing this, you are actually separating out the code, and there's less places to fix. Now, if you tried to do this without inheritance and you just made every employee its own object, you would have tons and tons of different object types to keep track of. And if you wanted to make a change across all those, you would have to go through and change each individual object that you created. However, say you decide down the road that, oh, I want to keep track of all employees' birthdays. Not just executive birthdays, not just contractor birthdays, not just janitor birthdays, but every employee's birthday. All right, well, that sounds reasonable. You just go into the class file for employee, and you add a variable, probably a string. Yep, string, because you got slashes in there, formatting, stuff like that. Yeah, so then you would be able to add a birthday variable to the employee class, and then that would pass down to every single object that inherits from that class. I thought I was just going to stick to simple variables in this video, but might as well, right? And a little connection to real-world example. I tried to do a Python competency test on LinkedIn the other day, and didn't do so well because I didn't realize that Python deals a lot with inheritance and stuff like that. It's definitely object-oriented programming. And let's see, is there anything else we can do out here while we're out here? That's another thing with this game. You do a lot of back and forth. Is that? Yes. Let's do that. Alright. The big suck. Anyways. Oh, where was I? Oh, yeah. So I did the assessment. I didn't study for it. I was just like, oh, yeah, I've done, you know, hundreds of challenges on Code Wars. I know Python. I know it pretty well. Well, I didn't realize that they were going to bring up concepts like inheritance and stuff like that and want to know the exact syntax and all that. So, yes. And it was also timed. So I only had like a minute and a half for each question. I didn't really have time to research the answer, and that's the point. They want you to know this stuff off the top of your head. So, needless to say, I didn't do so great on the assessment. I'm not too worried about it. Because, honestly, in the real world, you will have a little time to look up answers. It's better to have, it's better to know as much as you can off the top of your head, but like I've said before, knowing everything in computer science is impossible. You almost always need reference materials. That's why GitHub's still a really good idea, like I talked about in the last video. Like, you just want to have a lot of ability to reference.
Grab it and get sucking.
Find the big sucker. Is that the big suck? Well, whatever it is, we don't need it around. And there's another one. Okay, so anyways, yes, back to variables, objects. Definitely good to know. Alright, I'm pretty sure there's a Typhon delay in here. Oh, okay. A package.
Now, go harvest some succulent cacti fruit. Those bad boys taste so goddamn delicious my customers won't care what they're eating, which is how I prefer it. And don't you dare judge me. If serving people toenail clippings and dead skin is wrong, I don't want to be right.
Okay. So wait, do I have the big suck? I'm pretty sure it's a gun. Yep, there it is. The big suck. What dat underbarrel do? And see, this is a good example, while I'm looking at it, of red text on a very common, or sorry, this is technically an uncommon item, but yeah. So let's put that right there. And we have to use this to get cacti? Okay, it's been a while since I've done this one, so bear with me. Go where the pointer tells you to go and do the thing. Okay, whoops. Whoopsie. Also, this is an AK-47. Pretty cool. Like it. Alright, so variables, objects. Objects are complex variables. Variables are very important to understand and know and be able to work with. And Python makes it incredibly easy. Incredibly easy. So like I've said before, I learned Java for my first language. And in Java, you have to declare what type of variable it is at the point of initiating the variable. Well, and also I shouldn't say initiating, declaring. Because that you can make the decision to not initialize a variable. And what that means is at the time of declaring the variable, so the line of code where you say, you know, this variable is this, or this equals this. So initializing refers to setting an initial value to it, and that's something you always want to make sure you do in languages like, well, pretty much everywhere, actually. It's just good practice.
Its secondary function is what we call in the biz splash damage. You know, like ground slams and grenades. Anyway, that means it'll knock those succulents right off. Try it.
Okay, so we got to use the grenade launcher and blow up the cacti. And why we kept our other gun around, so we can deal with these things. Okay, and get the cacti that dropped. There we go.
I guess I could use those skags in my skag dogs.
And we get skag meat.
Seems wrong, but I might as well try and grab the skag.
Bada bing. Okay, so back to variables. Like I said, inheritance is really important, but honestly, you really need to understand variables before you go anywhere too far into programming. And you'll learn more applications for variables as you go, and as you try to take on more challenges and accomplishments. Let's see, and grenade for that one. Oh, whoops. Okay, there we go. And grenade, and it was already on grenade. Alright, cacti. Apologies, I'm going to be very sidetracked all the time, and that's the nature of this game, that's the nature of computer science, that's the nature of a lot of things. So, yeah, variables. In Java, you need to declare what type of variable it is. So if it's an integer variable, you need to do something like int variable name. So let's just say num1, int num1 equals 5. You need to have all of that, and you also need to have a semicolon at the end of the line. Because unlike Python, it has a lot more syntax. Well, it has syntax for every line that you type. You have to add a semicolon at the end of every line to let the compiler know, okay, this is a new line, this is a new concept, this is a new section of the code. So Python's a lot easier, and I like Python because it also forces you to write clean code. And by that I mean, if you're learning Java, you separate pieces of code with angle brackets, and this might be getting a little ahead of ourselves. Actually, yeah, let's just wait for a later episode for that. So variables, with languages like Java and C++, you have to declare the variable type, the variable name, then an equal sign, and then the value of the variable. And that is also considered initializing a variable, because you're giving it a value at the time of declaring it. And you can give it a value later, but the problem is with Java and C++, at least I know, that if you just declare a variable without initializing it, it could have whatever data was stored at the variable's location left over from other programs. Now this might not seem all that big of a deal at first, but really it can lead to problems, because if you never assign that variable to another value later on in your program, you'll get a bunch of garbage or a bunch of gibberish when you try to use it. And again, the reason that you learn things like hello world and print statements is because that's how you check the value of a variable, is you print it to the console. Alright, well, since we're probably not going to come out here anymore, let's listen to the second one.
The sand reddens as night falls. A new clan has arrived in the droughts. Scorcheye says they have conquered every clan from the Parched Fathoms to Devil's Eraser Ridge. Their leader is a witch. Scorcheye claims she can devour a man with her mind.
Okay. Coolsies. Alright, let's see. Last cacti, we'll probably get some dialogue from...
There's always an alpha. Suck it up for me.
Alright, kill the succulent alpha skag. A lot of running. Am I even running in the right place? Oh, yep, we have to go under here. Come here, Alpha. Oh, and again, back to classes of Skag. We got a Succulent Alpha Skag. That would be a different object type. And it would inherit a Skag object. So it would still have all the qualities of a Skag, but then you could specify specific things. You could change things about it, you know. Let's see, this is just a Succulent Skag. And you notice those are vastly different from my Skag, the glowing abomination that's running away right now. Oh wait, let's see, collect Alpha Skag meat. Good.
It looks like somebody's been poaching my succulents, which means in chef code that they must die. Gotta be the bandit chef mincemeat. Go kill him.
Okay, and you know what?
It's all coming together. Soon I'll make my spatula-wielding rival pay for what he's done. But first, we'll make my new rival mincemeat pay. Listen, a chef's life is half revenge killings. It's a thing.
Love it. Alright, and I could have fast traveled to the car, but I knew it was really close by, so, whatever. And now, let's just check where we're going. And this will give me a little bit of time. I know we're going over, but just a little bit more time to finish up with variables. Actually, I might even make a whole other episode on variables, because really they get complex. And then I'll do an episode on Java, and then one on C++, and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, the variables are very important. And you need to know how the specific language you're trying to program in handles variables.
Watch out for mincemeat skags, truffle munch and butt munch. They will munch anything, including you.
I also haven't been using my skill, so.
I have prepared Chef mincemeat for his final.
There we go. Gotta kill one more. Okay, so yeah. And each language has its own syntax for variables. And you want to be able to... Let's see, you want to be good with variables because you're probably going to need to pass them between functions, between programs. And actually, to kind of tie it back to Linux, like we were talking about a couple episodes back, you can actually pass output from one program as a variable into another program, the input. So yeah, it's very useful to learn. And again, I'm going to go back and add a more detailed description on my website of all things Linux. Oh, let's see, we got to collect the meat. And where did the other one go?
Some days you hunt, some days you are hunted.
Oh, it was right here too. Okay. And that is another mission down.
A few more skags and I'll be able to advertise my skag dogs have 50% meat. Drop the ingredients off and you get paid.
Okay, and that's good for variables for now. I'll go turn in the mission. Actually I might. Let's see. I mean, I haven't really done anything off camera. Yeah, let's go to the Outrunner. I'll just go turn in the mission real quick, because if not, I'll do it at the beginning of the next episode, and, well, it's another minute. So, alright. Trying to think if there's anything that I really want to cover as far as variables are concerned. I mean, as always, there's a much more detailed explanation on all of this stuff on my website. But for this video, yeah, I think we covered quite a bit of useful information. Inheritance is really key. You need to be able to know how to do that. Let's see. And the thing with inheritance is it gets all of the methods and variables from the parent class. So there's that.
That'll teach that arrogant spatula-wielding bastard. People taste my new and improved skag dogs. I'll be at the top of the culinary establishment once again. And you'll get free skag dogs for life. Hope you're hungry.
Ugh, right? Although surprisingly, real hot dogs in real life aren't really a whole lot better than what that guy was talking about. But anyways, that's all the time for this episode. I'll figure out the next one shortly. Alright, have a good one.